threats, just threats in the first month of the school year have gone up. September of 21, they identified 151 threats compared to a 3-year average of 29. What is going on? This has to be analyzed. It has to be thought about. And actual shootings doubled from the previous year at 55, up from 24. We need to not be thinking about, hey, how can we keep doing the same thing? We need to be thinking about how can we do something different. So the question is always, well, all right, let's identify the profile. Who's doing this shooting? Sadly, I can tell you there is no profile, and we don't have the psychological tools to identify who's going to be a shooter. But there are some commonalities. There are some indicators, and I'm going to share with you what some of those are. These are often current or former students of the school they go to shoot up. That's not always the case, and they are often in some type of mental, emotional, or social crisis. And being bullied was common. Now, do they go back and shoot the bully? Occasionally, but typically that's not the case. Shooters go and aggress not against their transgressors, but against surrogates. They go shoot against somebody that's just a stand-in. They just go shoot somebody that is available, somebody that they aren't threatened by. These are people that have experienced observable, now I want to emphasize observable, mental health symptoms in 3 main categories: psychological, behavioral, and neurological. I'm emphasizing observable because people notice that they're behaving unusually. About half of them have received 1 or more mental health services, so they've come to the attention of mental health providers. So they're not completely in the dark and about these people. They are on somebody's radar. Most typically, it's depression or suicidal ideation. Some have anxiety. A much smaller percentage than you would think present with anger. They're depressed. They've been shunned by society. They've been through some type of rejection experience. And our number one need is acceptance. Our number one fear is rejection. And they've had some trauma in that regard. And they very frequently have negative home life factors such as divorce, drug use, someone in the family, a mother or father, have criminal charges, and domestic violence is common. So they exhibit these concerning behaviors, and that contradicts the myth that, oh, it's the nicest guy, it's the last person I would have ever thought of. That's not true. And here's a very troubling element. They're often the product of the contagion effect. Now, what do I mean by that? They're inspired by other school shooters. I say that's particularly troubling because when you see what has happened in Uvalde, that predicts that it's very likely that there's going to be a repeat of this in the near future. Someone out there that is really desperate, really tragic, is going to see what has happened here, and they're going to become obsessed with it, and they're going to react to it. Maybe in a week, maybe in a month, who knows? And one of the most confounding things about this is they often tell others what they're going to do before they do it. Last year, we covered another shocking school shooting that happened just days after Thanksgiving. On November 28, 2021, 15-year-old Ethan Crumley walked into Oxford High School in a Detroit suburb and shot and killed 4 students. Some students actually stayed home because they said they knew what was going to happen and they didn't feel safe going to school. Now, this crime not only stood out at the time as being the deadliest school shooting since Parkland, but for being the first where a shooter's parents have been charged with crimes linked to the shooting.
They basically gave him a license and permission to kill. Did they know the gun was in the backpack? Did they know the plan, what he was going to carry out? Why not bring him home if there's trouble?
Isn't their job to know where the gun is? If the gun is missing from home and their child is being called in at school and he's drawing pictures of bullets and blood, and they say, "Where's our gun?" and he was shooting it the day before, isn't it endemic upon a parent to say, "Wait a minute, this isn't a coincidence"? And we also heard about what happened from Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard. Sheriff, when you find out about this, in this case and in most cases, you intervene once something happens, right?
The school district officials did interview the subject the day before and the day of the tragedy, and we were never brought into those meetings. And that would have triggered the protocols that we have in place. And that is that if there's concerning behavior, the first thing we do is determine if there's a threat immediately. I'm sad to say, we sit here today, we've had more threats today. If you make a threat, even if it's not real, if you think it's a joke, it's not. If you have no intention of carrying out a threat, it's still a crime.
The shooter charged through the doors of Uvalde's Robb Elementary School, opening fire just after 11:30. Armed, law enforcement says, with an AR-15 assault rifle, high-capacity magazines, and a handgun.
And we have learned that the gunman legally purchased 2 assault rifles and almost 400 rounds of ammunition earlier this month for his 18th birthday.
Another very powerful weapon. And by the way, these weapons are very expensive. I think in this case, there were reports that the gun cost close to $1,800. And you have to ask yourself, where does this kid get money for an $1,800 assault rifle? And when you talk to the family, the grandfather says he knew nothing about it.
Consternados, sorprendidos por todo esto.
Sí, no esperaba yo.
Could you give us any insight into his
Not
state
really.
of mind? When's the last time you spoke to him?
I speak to him daily.
You know he had guns in the house? No?
I didn't know. I get up at 5 o'clock, leave, come back.
He didn't know that the child had this. And look, I'm sorry, but if you have a child that's building up an arsenal, it's your job to know. You need to know what your child is spending money on and where they're getting that kind of money. There were 2 rifles apparently bought in the Uvalde shooting. And we don't want to focus on just statistics and firearms and weapons and forget what's on the other end of that rifle. What's on the other end of this tragedy? It may just seem like, firearms and guns and violence. But let's not forget the humanity. Some of the children, and we are talking children here, 9, 10-year-old children in Uvalde. One of them speaking to a local news outlet, KENS5, in Texas, said, "When I heard the shooting through the door, I told my friend to hide under something so he won't find us." He said, and I quote, "I was hiding hard, and I was telling my friend not to talk because he's going to hear us." The boy shared heartbreaking details about what happened in that room. He said, and I quote, "When the cops came, the cop said, 'Yell if you need help.' And one of the persons in my class said, 'Help!' The guy overheard and he came and shot her," the boy said. The cop barged into that classroom and the guy shot at the cop and the cop started shooting. He said that once the shooting stopped, he came out from under the table. "I got out with my friend. I knew it was police because I saw the armor and the shield." It's a 10-year-old child. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. Now, the big question that you have to be asking yourself right now is, if what we've been talking about is true, and it is, you can study this for years, as I have, and you're going to find that these people are likely to tell somebody what they're going to do. They're actually very likely to be known to the system. So if they tend to have what's called leakage, meaning that they post a manifesto or they put things on the internet or they tell people what they're going to do, you think, then how are we not stopping this?